What up? It's the Grandpa MC coming at you with another video. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Alright, so I know it's a long time coming, but and it's on my own schedule. It ain't like I'm getting mad demands, but that's a whole nother. But continuing on with my review of the Celtics City documentary. Uh, this video is gonna be about episode 7. This is basically about the episode about when the new Celtics came aboard after the Larry Bird era and the Reggie Lewis thing, the short Reggie Lewis era, and things that were going on from about 92 to 99. That's when this is what this episode is covering. So the episode opens up. D Brown's reminiscing about his time with the Celtics, the slam dunk contest, the prestigious reputation that the Celtics had in the NBA at that time. They switched to Jalen Green, talking about what it meant to be a Celtic, coinciding with the D Brown dunk contest when he competed in it not too long ago. So starts going through who the new Celtics were: Reggie Lewis, Brian Shaw, Kevin Gamble, one of my favorites, D Brown, Tommy Heinsohn dubbed them the Zip Boys because of the way they went up and down the court. That was Heinsohn, man. Heinsohn was has always been a homer for the Celtics. They were comparing excuse me. They were comparing Reggie Lewis to Jordan in the Boston area. He was their Larry Bird. Reggie Lewis was. They brought Bill DeVoe back on to put their 2 cents in. They, just basically echoed what was said, what I just said. They, he was their Larry Bird. Reggie Lewis was. They started talking to Jerome Stanley. Jerome Stanley was an agent for Reggie Lewis and I think Brian Shaw at that time, and he started talking about how this was like the new point in the NBA where they had to give it up to the players. The players had a little bit more power, and so that the contract that he negotiated for Reggie Lewis, it was worth more than what Magic was getting paid at the time. This was around the Rodney King era, so it was a lot of sensitivity toward race issues and things of that nature. They start talking about the Wellesley incident with D Brown when he basically got the police was called on him by some woman, and she said that he was suspicious looking and things of that nature. They cornered him. They was about to lay him down. I think they did, were starting the process of cuffing him, but then somebody that walked past, it was a random person walked by, and he said that that he played for the Celtics, and that got him out of that situation, which was, Boston players. The theme throughout the Celtics documentary is they're talking about how racial tensions and incidents occurred. It's always been a form of racial strife in Boston going back to the 60s. So I mean they really covered the effect that it had on certain players that played for the Boston Celtics. Xavier McDaniels shows up. Him and D Brown start talking. They talk about how they were the vets. Sherman Douglas and him. I think it was. Oh, I'll get to that in a second. But it showed kind of like the camaraderie that team had with the players, all the players at that time, because they were mad close. Incidentally, Rick Fox was on that team. I remember that too. because Rick Fox played for North Carolina. I kept up with North Carolina players back in them days. But he wasn't mentioned at all, which is kind of strange. It could be. But again, Rick Fox, just from me knowing Rick Fox from back in the day, he must not have been a too popular guy in the locker room, because it's not too much talk to him. I remember going on a little tangent here, but I remember the Sacramento and Lakers rivalry that was for like 3 to 4 years, and when he shoved the ball in Doug Christie's face and they had a knockdown, drag out fight, Doug Christie's wife famously ran to it, and it was wild. But my point was, Rick Fox must not have been too much of a good locker room guy, but I don't know that for sure. But anyway, they start reiterating again how beloved Reggie Lewis was in the city. He was active in the city. He was going to different parts of Boston, the urban areas, of course, and he was making himself known. He was interacting and becoming a part of the community. He was considered the second best two guard behind Michael Jordan. It was one game where he was blocking Jordan like 3, 4, 5 times. And I remember a couple of games when they were playing the Celtics. Jordan had his hands full with Reggie Lewis. Reggie Lewis had a nice little pull-up game, a nice 2-3 dribble pull-up. He could get to the hole. He was a pretty good dunker, and he was a cerebral player too. So, I mean, you had to be back then to play with Bird and McHale and Parrish. So. They go into '93 when they played the Charlotte Hornets series, where he started off like he was just hitting jump after jumper, scoring point after point, and then all of a sudden he's running up court and he stumbles and he falls down. Now, he didn't pass out, but he was clearly affected by something, and he came back into the game in the second half, but he wasn't himself. So him and his wife went and got another diagnosis because I think the Celtics doctors said that he had a heart issue. So his wife and him went in and got another opinion, and he came and said that he had a benign fainting condition. Now, just a little bit of background on that I am aware of. It was this book that I have still, called Money Players, and it was describing different incidents with players coming in, and that was new players and old players. They had a couple of chapters in there about Jordan, Shaq, Isaiah. It's an interesting book, interesting read. If you able to find the book or get it, I suggest you read it. It's really detailed, but the basic feeling throughout the media in Boston is that Reggie Lewis, and especially like with Jackie McMullen, and I get to Bob Ryan, but Jackie McMullen, for example, she was a young reporter covering Reggie Lewis on her first, I guess, beat, and she had grown fond of him, had a sentimental feeling toward him. The main thing that I drew from the documentary is that, and the book, that the Boston media that really didn't want to dwell too deep into this situation. It was reports, and it was in the book, per the book, that he was out there dibbling and dabbling in that powder. So it would have been so many questions to answer coming from Boston, because how can you have two players that get affected by cocaine, like not too far from each other, Bias was in 86, and Reggie Lewis was in 93, 94. So it was a little bit of time, but it was still some raw feelings there, and that's the basic point that I got from it, is that they didn't really want to delve too deep into the possible drug use of Reggie Lewis. So they just let that fall. Bob Ryan, when he was talking about it with, it was Dave Shaughnessy and another Boston reporter, they were talking about it, and Bob Ryan had a faraway look in his eye, looking like he knew a lot, but he just wasn't going to speak on it. But he had a very pensive look on his face when they were talking about Reggie Lewis as they were closing that section down on that. Kevin McHale retired in 93. A year or so after that, Parrish left. He didn't retire, but he went to the Bulls. It was the end of the Boston Celtics era as we knew it, because that was around the time when I started watching. Larry Bird was, it was like 87. Larry Bird was still effective, but he was not too far. He was a little bit away from retiring. So 87, 92, so that's 5 years. So I had 5 years to watch Larry Bird, and the last two were like injury riddled. When I watched old footage of Bird, man, Bird was nice, man. Bird was mad nice. So that basically put the Celtics on reset. And another factor that I forgot the guy's name who was talking, but he said another factor in basically the Boston Celtics going through those hard times in the late 90s going into the 2000s was they closed the Boston Garden down. Later on, they demolished it. Larry Bird described it as a magical place. He described it as, he said it was because the court was upstairs, which I didn't know. That's got to be nice. Then he said the train was underneath. The train station was underneath that. He said it was just a magical place. So that was another factor. So then comes the ML Carr era. ML Carr was in like a no-win situation. So they were bad, and he knew it. And so he was in his office one day, and Bill Russell called him up, and he was talking to him kind of like he was challenging him a little bit because he called him boy. And Mel Carr was like, "Excuse me," and he was like, "Well, I'm just getting you ready for what's gonna happen." And Mel Carr, he knew it. Mel Carr was a former guard. I want to say was he former prison guard. So ML Carr was like mentally tough, but like that whole little situation with him, and he started off in the office. He was gonna be like the GM or something. Then he went down to went down to the bench, started coaching them. This coincided with the Antoine Walker. Antoine Walker was drafted around that time, and Antoine Walker was, I think it was a detriment to him that he got put out there like that. Excuse me. He got put out there like that. Basically, he was just doing everything because he was considered a magic type player. So he could assist, score, he could hit threes. I personally like Antoine Walker, but like he did a little bit too much showboating to me. That's what I got from him. He was nice, but like I don't think his head was all the way there to compete for a championship. And you know, his career went on. He got traded a couple times. Ended up winning the championship before he went out with Miami, if I'm not mistaken. But like everybody knows Antoine Walker's story. I'm not here to talk about that. That's if you want to peep that out. But Antoine Walker got put through the ringer. So then comes the draft where they were preparing to draft Tim Duncan. Emil Carr gets jettisoned. He gets pushed back up to the front office, and Rick Pitino comes in. Now, Rick Pitino came in with a lot of cachet coming from Kentucky, had just won the title. I thought that he was going to activate Antoine Walker, but apparently that wasn't to be. So one thing that ruffled a little bit of feathers in the office, or in the Boston organization, was that he basically put Red Auerbach off to the side and said that he was the only team president. Now, for years, Red Auerbach wasn't really in the organization like he was back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even going into the 90s. He was still around, but he wasn't really doing anything. He was just basically, the guy for Boston. They started talking about how Rick Pitino they could hear him hollering at Antoine Walker, because Antoine Walker was frazzled by that point. Bill Simmons and his dad said that's all that basically he could hear during those games. Antoine. I remember that myself. So then Rick Pitino goes into his dismantling mode. He gets rid of D. Brown, a lot of the office workers, longtime office workers. He even went as far as putting the office staff on a diet. He had a weight limit. He was basically trying to be Pat Riley. He was following Pat Riley's formula for winning and all that other stuff. He read his book, so he basically put the office workers on a diet. Paul Pierce gets drafted in '98. Paul Pierce got along with Red Auerbach and Bill Russell, which was great. They finally officially retired Bill Russell's number in front of a whole crowd around that time, because it seemed like it was a point to kind of like pull back from the past and highlight different eras of the Celtics. So they basically, they gave Bill Russell an official retirement where the crowd was there and he was able to, wave to him and all that other stuff. Bill Russell started loosening up, toward the 2000s. He was a lot more approachable by media. He was like a grandpa by then, so like he had softened up and he was more accessible to the media at that time. Antoine Walker he talked about the point in his career where he realized that Paul Pierce was the guy, and I remember that because Paul Pierce was something back in the day. Paul Pierce was back in the day. American treasure, man. Paul Pierce, man, for what he did during the playoffs when the Celtics lost, and he said he was gonna walk all the way from home to the studio. It was 20 miles, man. But that's California, man. So he didn't have too much heat on him. So the episode's starting to wrap up. They go into the famous rant where Rick Pitino said that Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish isn't coming through that door. By then, the pressure was getting to Pitino, and he was just lashing out. So then they close out the episode, and they touch on when Paul Pierce gets stabbed at the nightclub. So that's the end of the episode for Celtics City, episode number 7. Real good episode. I suggest you watch it. Coming with episode 9 soon. Grandpa out.